This show was created to educate and inspire our viewers to become better versions of themselves.
All right, you're watching the Power Hour. I'm your host, DJ Larry Jones, and today we'll be discussing high blood pressure. If you watched the show a couple of weeks ago, we're pretty much picking up where we left off.
Yeah.
And we can't tell you enough how important it is to have knowledge of what to look for as far as signs and symptoms. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back once again and again and again and again. She'll be back often. Nurse KIYA Benaya. KIYA, how are you?
I am wonderful. I wore my red today to represent blood pressure.
Nice.
It's pressure. It's pressure.
I missed the memo. I should have put something red on.
I see you got a little variation already.
Yeah, you know, a little something going on, you know.
We're vibing. We're vibing.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, we're picking up where we left off. I want to start from the top for people who may have missed the mark on this one. Like I said, I can't express how important it is to know how to check and the signs and symptoms
Yeah.
of what can possibly sneak up on you and become a disaster. That's blood pressure. What are the risk factors for developing high blood pressure?
The risk factors would definitely be related to, I would start out with your diet, what you're eating.
Right.
If you are eating a high processed diet, fast food all the time, lunch meat, these foods are high in salt. These foods are high in sugar. These foods are going to drive your blood pressure wild. The other thing would be refined foods, a lot of white rice, white flour, foods that are void of their original nutritional value. I have a little list here to help me not forget anything.
Right.
High fat, animal protein is oftentimes mixed with fat. So people say, I got to get my protein, and they often say it's really animal meat, but that's not the only source of protein. So we'll get into that a little later, but the risk factor would be eating the standard American diet. So we call that the SAD diet, and that's the diet that's sad because it always ends in destruction. It always ends with heart problems or some other form of problems, cancer, etc.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, when we talk about protein, is protein powder supplements any good?
Depends on the protein powder. So I am whole food plant-based. You're not going to get me to say anything about anything else being well or good because the studies all prove that animal protein is not beneficial for our bodies overall. So the type of protein is important. And it's so many nitty-gritty details, Larry, that this conversation can go all the way nutritional because that's really the meat and potatoes of health. And you were talking about risk factors where we can't forget about the sedentary lifestyle that most people operate in today. Like you and I are sitting right now. I hope we won't sit all day, but if you sit all day, like most 9-to-5 jobs have you doing, then you're in a sedentary lifestyle. Then there's blood pooling. Then there's fat or adipose tissue that's going to develop around your midsection. So this is another risk factor. If you have a large tummy, a rounded face, fat in places where it does not belong, fat in the buttocks even, fat in the breast area even, these things can also increase your risk.
So mobility is important.
Mobility is vital. It's essential. We are in this age of technology where we sit and we do work from our desk, but prehistorically, that was never our lives. We climbed trees. If we didn't climb a tree to get our fruit, we were in the garden planting vegetables. We always were active. We were outside. And I'm going to mention this last risk factor, which is a low vitamin D level. Mm-hmm. And this ties into what we're talking about because people are not outside anymore. So if you're not outside, you can't get vitamin D, which is truly a hormone. Scientists are now realizing it's more of a hormone than a vitamin. But if you're not outside in the sun, you're going to be void or deficient of vitamin D, which affects the blood pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, and we often hear stay out of the sun. It can cause skin cancer, but that's another show within itself.
I'm
You,
happy you mentioned that though.
yeah,
It's we could seal that right now, right quick.
go ahead. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Because the God that created us created the sunshine. It's not harmful to us unless it's in excess.
Mhm.
So we live in Texas, my husband, my children, and I, we live in Texas. In the summer, it can get pretty hot. I'd be a fool to be out sunbathing for 2 hours, right? In 100-degree weather. We have to use some common sense.
Yeah.
But if I'm outside for 30 minutes in the sun, soaking it in, that's not going to cause any harm.
No.
And I am not going to put out a broad statement saying people should not do this, but I'm going to say what I do not do. I do not wear sunscreen because sunscreen blocks your body's ability to soak in those UV rays from the light and transform your cholesterol into vitamin D.
Right. And too much of anything is not good for you.
You said it. You said it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how was it diagnosed? How was high blood pressure diagnosed for people who may have missed it last week?
Yeah. That's a good question. High blood pressure is generally diagnosed in your doctor's office after getting too high or elevated readings of blood pressure. Today, the American standard is 140/90. So if you go to your doctor's office and they check your blood pressure, and usually it's done kind of in a rush, come in, have a seat, sit down, put the cuff on, and they check your blood pressure in those really less than ideal conditions. Your blood pressure is going to be a little elevated, period. So just to halt that discussion for a second, if the doctor gets a reading of 140/90 2 times at his office, he will deem that you have high blood pressure and likely say you need this medication or this prescription.
Right. Now, let's dabble a little bit in prevention, preventative measures. Can it be prevented?
Absolutely. High blood pressure is 1 in 3 or 4 adults have high blood pressure, Larry.
Right.
1 in every 3 or 4 adults. And here's the crazy part about that fact is many people don't even know they have high blood pressure.
I know. I didn't know.
Okay. You see? So we have a problem.
Yeah.
We have a problem. And this ties back to our history. 100 years ago, Larry, this was not our story.
Right. So how did it become our story?
Yeah. You okay. You see, this is why. This is how, and this is why. Because we're so smart. Okay? We're so smart that we decided, let me go to one thing that many people might not have ever heard of. We decided that we're going to make changes, things as it is, it's not the best. I know you cook 3 meals a day, but let's start some fast food restaurants.
Right.
Let's butter it up and fry it up, honey, and make it taste real good. Salt it up, sugar it up, and let's make it convenient. So instead of mom leaving the house, going to work, coming home to prepare a dinner for her family, she's going to stop off at Boston Market. Okay.
Yeah.
And she's going to serve her family that processed food. So where did it start? It started when we changed our diet, when we went from a traditional model of the family cooks together, not just mom, but dad and the children. Yeah. They're cooking together and they're eating that well-nourished, well-loved meal to eating fast, convenient foods. Mm-hmm. That's one of the places. I'm going to mention another place. We decided in the 50s that wheat needed to be changed because wheat was like a staple of our meals. Right. So a wonderful man, I can't remember his name, and I'm saying wonderful with big quotation marks. I'm sure he was well-intending and well-meaning, but it didn't cause anything well. It didn't cause anything good. He decided that he's going to hybridize the American wheat. Okay. So when he hybridized the wheat, there were no tests, just like the COVID-19 vaccine. There were no tests to prove that that it was efficacious, that it was beneficial long term. They hybridized the wheat. The wheat started yielding much more crop, which was what they wanted. They wanted to be able to feed a lot more people on one wheat grain, and they accomplished that. And he won a Nobel Peace Prize for this. So he did good in the eyes of America. But to make a long story short, many years later, 50 years later, they're realizing people are sensitive to the gluten in this wheat.
Yeah.
And not to go too deep, whenever you're sensitive, whenever you have a food allergy, or you're sensitive to it, you might not break out in hives, but you might get a little eczema, a little rash.
Yeah.
That is called inflammation. So overall, when we talk about the standard American diet, that fast food, the processed food, even some of the food that we buy out of the supermarket, and when we buy fast food from the restaurants, or when we eat the hybridized wheat, we are constantly placing ourselves in an inflamed state. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
And just to wrap it up with the blood pressure, to connect it, inflammation in your body equals high blood pressure.
Wow. Now, we were talking about not knowing if you have it or not. What are some of the signs and symptoms?
We talked about this, I think, 2 weeks ago, about it being a silent killer, because oftentimes there are no symptoms. So blood pressure is one of those things that you have to monitor routinely. And you mentioned also in the previous show that you can easily buy a blood pressure machine from a CVS, any kind of Walgreens, even a Walmart probably has one, for an affordable price. Monitoring our blood pressure on a weekly basis is probably a great idea for people who are not hypertensive.
Yeah, it's a really good idea. Like I said, I do it every morning, and that determines whether I should take medication or not. A lot of times I don't take medication because I changed my diet and it's not as elevated as it used to be. So changing your diet is very, very important as far as controlling your blood pressure. So the key is monitoring, and once you monitor it, you can control it, and just don't veer off course with it, because it has deadly, severe consequences if you do.
Absolutely.
And let's talk about some of that. Those consequences. What are some of the consequences? I mean, you have stroke, heart attack. It's a lot of things that can go wrong.
Let me mention something that is less mentioned. It can cause dementia.
Wow.
Right now we have this epidemic of older people are now losing their memories. They can't remember anything. They can't even remember how to hold a spoon to feed themselves. High blood pressure can cause that.
Yeah.
High blood pressure is one of the leading causes of kidney failure. And it's also one of the leading causes of blindness. Because when you think about blood pressure, you have to really, I like to put things in different ways to help people to understand, but it is a high pressure system, and it's not just affecting your heart, but every organ. So when blood leaves your heart under this high intense level of pressure, it's pounding the arteries, first of all. So there's damage being done there. And then by the time it gets to the end organ, the kidneys, the liver, the lungs, all of these organs are being beat up on a constant, daily, second by second basis with every beat of blood. So this is what's happening in our bodies. And over time, the body literally gives up. And that's why, Larry, medications are not effective.
They're Band-Aids.
Say it again.
They're Band-Aids. Band-Aids. Yep.
That's one of my favorite quotes. A Band-Aid on a wound that will never heal. So it's not a matter of monitoring your blood pressure to see if you have high blood pressure. If you are eating the standard American diet on a daily basis, processed food, high fat, high sugar, high salt, and if you are living a sedentary lifestyle, not exercising, not working out, and you are not getting outside in the sun, and of course there's other things like high levels of stress, you already know down the pipeline, if you don't have high blood pressure right now, it is coming.
It's on its way. Yeah.
Or something else is coming. Something else is coming. So the simple thing that I like to say is focus on your diet. Focus on what you're eating. Focus on drinking water.
Yeah, water.
Vital.
Water is your best friend.
Focus on getting on a weight reduction program if you have excess weight. I want you to know this. Every pound of fat that we add to our body is the equivalent of 1 mile of blood vessels that our body now has to produce to take care of that fat. Did you hear me?
Yeah. Heavy.
Every 1 pound of fat, 1 pound equals 1 mile of arteries and veins and capillaries that now your heart is not going to grow. But your little heart now has to pump blood into all these miles of fat because it's there. And anything that is alive has to receive blood. And the body is smart enough to know, we got to take care of this fat now. It's ours. It's here. Yeah. But it increases the workload on the heart. And that blood pressure just keeps going up. So get on a weight loss program. Not necessarily starving yourself to death. I do not agree with that. But learning how to eat foods that are nutritious, foods that are going to cause you to lose weight without you even trying.
How do you feel about pills, pills to lose weight? You see all this stuff on social media and on TV. Take this pill and you'll magically lose weight. How do you feel about that?
Hated it. I hate it because just like Ozempic, that's one of them big ones right now, $1 billion industry. And let me tell you, these big time guys, whoever's up there in the high in the food chain in the Ozempic, they're ranking in the dough on who's back. So if you're taking a pill, what's going to happen when you no longer can take the pill? You see, so everything I'm saying, it goes right back to you have to change your lifestyle behaviors.
You have to do the work yourself.
There is no easy, quick fixes to this. And of course, I brought something. You know, I'm going to bring something.
I know. You got something. What you got this time? Last week it was boxing gloves. What is it?
I almost brought them again today. I got some Brussels sprouts.
Nice.
Good old healthy organic. Let me put the plug in for the organic community. Organic is a must. Okay. This has potassium in it. Why am I highlighting potassium? Because oftentimes people with high blood pressure, they focus only on salt. Right. Salt is not the only problem. It's a lack of potassium.
Right.
You can get it in this. Then we have some good old fashioned. Let's call it old fashioned, Larry. Some tomatoes. Okay. Nice. These are some good. Look at the color. The color tells you already this going to do good things inside of me. Yep. This right here going to be good for my blood pressure. Okay. Then we have some strawberries. A little red in there again. This is good for the blood pressure too. Some organic strawberries. And lastly, I got some organic spring mix lettuce. That's it. This is food. And if we cut all of that up together, that's a salad. And what's that going to do for the blood pressure? Oh, it's going to bring it down.
Yeah, it's going to lower it.
It's going to bring it down.
All right, last question. Is it hereditary? Is it or is it not hereditary? I don't believe it is. Can it be? I may be wrong.
Larry, even if it is hereditary, even if it is, we have the power to beat the hereditary.
To control it, exactly.
What we have to realize is that our genes, okay, yes, there's a lot of things that happened before we were born. Mama smoked while you were in the womb. Okay, that could impact your kidneys, which could impact your blood pressure. However, like we talked about, Barbara O'Neill's quote, genetics loads the gun, but it's what you do every day. It's your lifestyle that pulls that trigger.
There you go.
So at the end of the day, you may have a predisposition because of family lifestyle, because you don't just inherit genes from your family. You inherit their lifestyle. You inherit their dietary behaviors. You inherit their couch potato-ness. No offense. I was one at a point in my life.
Oh, yeah.
We inherit much more than our genes. But I just want to put this plug in for the genes. Big ups to the genes in our bodies. Your genes are literally made up of the food that you eat. Boom.
There it is.
Your genes are made up of the food that you eat, the food we eat. It is our human bodies are perfectly designed to heal themselves. Let me add that there.
Exactly. So the old saying, "You are what you eat," is factual.
It's 1,000% factual. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time. You're watching Health Tips with
Yes.
DJ Larry Jones and KIYA. Make sure you stay tuned. Next week is going to be more information. And you want to let them know what we're talking about next week, or you want to just wait and let them be surprised by it?
Let them be surprised.
It's always educational, so you want to stay tuned.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
All right, you're watching the Power Hour right here on Soul TV.
The Power Hour is brought to you by Soul TV.